Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Joe, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing great, brother. How you doing?
Really, really exceptional. So happy you're here.
Awesome.
So I'm wearing the appropriate shirt, right? It says Warrior.
Yeah, man. And you are.
I knew we were going to talk, so I had to wear it, you know?
Yeah, cool, man. It's appropriate.
Yeah. Let me just check something. I think my sound is off. Can you say something?
Yeah. Are you getting like some sort of feedback?
Yeah, I'm getting like a broken sound. I don't know if it's my headset, which I can always remedy that. Can you say something?
Yep. Just test.
Just give me 1 second. I'm going to put on a different headset.
Cool. No worries, man.
I think I'm back.
Okay. Is that better?
No, not at all.
Oh man. Is it maybe my microphone?
It might be your microphone, because that's a brand new headset I just put on.
Yeah. That's a brand new mic. I hope it's not the mic. Let me try to change the setting here really quick.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny because I did a show earlier. My ears work.
Is that better?
Yes, ta-da!
That stinks. It's probably my mic.
It's a brand new mic, huh?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I got a loose cable or something. I don't know.
It's possible. Well, I'm happy you're here.
Yeah,
we
me
figured it out. That's the warrior in us, right?
The resiliency and always, pushing through, never stopping, no matter how pissed off or frustrated you get.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know if I get frustrated or pissed off anymore. I've gotten to that stage where, you know what? It doesn't matter. Things work out anyway.
Yeah, that's admirable. I wish I was there myself.
You're
However,
coming.
I find that I get pretty angry on a daily basis, but I get over it pretty quickly, and I
There you
manage
go.
it, I think, pretty well.
There you go. So you have a great background, but before we get into that, I want to get to know Joe, right? Tell me about where you grew up. Who were your biggest influences, even before the age of 10, if you will? And then we can go from there. And the reason for this show is I want to get to know you. And I definitely want to explore what you're doing currently. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I grew up on the southwest side of Chicago, like just outside of the city limits. And I ran around a lot, like in the woods. I was always a big nature kid growing up and big on adventure too. My mom left her dirt poor farm town when she was younger, like 19, 18. And she always encouraged me to have a sense of adventure, which led to me accidentally running away a couple of times as a little kid.
Wow.
I got the cops called on me by my mom for playing in the neighbor's yard for, I think, a little bit too long. But but yeah, it was a good childhood, and it was interesting. Before the age of 10, it's really hard for me to even think about who could have possibly, consciously influenced me. I became a big music fan when I was really young. Elton John was like my first musician that
Mm.
I listened to. And then I took a hard right and I went to Nirvana and a lot of the grunge scene. And so I've always just been interested in people. I think people in general have always interested me and influenced me in some form or capacity, in the regard of, adventure and exploration, and then getting to know people. I find the world pretty interesting.
World is not only interesting, but so diverse and so adventurous, if you will, right?
Mhm.
So tell me about, you know, your teenage years. What were those like? I know you found Nirvana, and man, what a shame, right? That
Yeah.
we lost him so early. But I guess he was fighting his demons and he lost, unfortunately. But tell me about your teenage years and what made you start to make your own way, if you will.
Yeah. I kind of got influenced by a pretty bad group of people at an early age. So at about like, 12, 13, I started to, in the process of chasing after girls, I ended up
Mm,
hanging around some much older guys who, in hindsight, were somewhat, I mean, they were pedophiles, they were drug addicts, they were
mm,
perverts. And there's no reason they should have been hanging out with the girls that were, the age that I was pursuing. But
right.
that's where the girls were at. And so that's where I went. And those were the things the girls were doing, the drugs and the drinking. And so I started doing it myself. My friends and I did, and
Mm,
unfortunately, that led me down a pretty destructive path through my teenage years. I mean, I got thrown out of 2 high schools and
mm,
barely graduated. And I did graduate out of a juvenile behavioral rehab program. Basically, I had to go to jail every day for school. It was
mm,
crazy. And when I started getting into the harder stuff like the crack, the heroin, shooting shit up in my veins, I really just was on one trajectory, and that was going to overdose probably. And I did overdose a few times. Luckily, I didn't die,
mm.
but I had already lost 4 friends by the time I was 18, 19.
Wow.
And my best friend at the time, John, who didn't go down as hard of a path as me, he joined the Marines. This is 2005, so the war is really kicking off. And
Mm.
when I saw the change that it had on him, the transformation of his character, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. And so I ended up joining the Marines exactly 1 year later to the day.
Mm. Totally a huge shift, I'm sure. Even the fact that, when you're doing drugs, nobody's really telling you what to do and how to do it and what time to get up and all these, even when to eat, right? And
Yeah.
you went to a whole different thing where your life totally changed.
Yeah.
What
People,
was boot camp like for you?
yeah. Let's see, boot camp. It was chaotic.
You trying to forget it?
Well, I have hard times sometimes, thinking back to certain areas of life just from all the concussions, but
Mm,
it was chaotic. It was scary. In hindsight, like afterwards, you realize boot camp's not that big of a deal. But up until that point, you're 18, 19,
yeah.
and you've never experienced anything like that before. And you have grown men screaming at you all day. You can't understand them. You know that you want to accomplish this thing, but you don't know how hard it really is going to be. They're
Mm,
watching you shower. You're running around with a bunch of naked dudes all day. I mean, there's 4 dudes pissing in a urinal.
mm,
Like that's some of the things I remember. I remember eating so fast that I choked and I almost died
mm,
because they're like 60, 79, 50, 50, 30, go out, out, out. Like you literally have seconds to just scarf your food. You run everywhere. Everybody's pissing in the same urinal. There's
mm,
no doors on the bathroom stalls. So whenever you have to like defecate, you're looking at your, platoon buddy or whatever we would call him. And I never understood what was ever being said. Like you just don't understand because their voices are so hoarse and you're spitting up blood. And so it was chaotic. It was a hell of a test in terms of a young man trying to find his way, especially with my type of a background. I had no
mhm,
discipline, I had no structure. And I'm pretty sure maybe there was one or two other dudes in that whole out of 120 kids who had a similar background. But for the most part, when you're going to the Marines, you have an idea that that's what you want to do in some form or fashion.
Right.
And it was unique.
Mm. So how long was your stint with the Marines?
I did 4 years at first, and then I got out because I didn't want to stay in. I
Mhm.
wanted to get out, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Figured college and party, but I was living in California at the time, and I was going through paramedic school because my grandfather and my great grandfather have lineage in the Chicago Fire Department.
Mm.
And I thought it'd be cool to be a paramedic. I didn't really want to be a firefighter, but to be a
Right.
paramedic to help people out. So as I was going through paramedic school, the Marine Corps opened up the Marine Special Operations Command. They had never had one before. They've always had Force Reconnaissance, but no actual Special Operations Command SOCOM asset. And as I was living on the beach, surfing every single day for like
Mm.
8 or 10 hours a day in Oceanside,
Wow.
California, it was a beautiful, beautiful life. I'm going to school. I'm getting the GI Bill. I'm like walking dogs for a living. And I just decided, you know what? Life is too good. Screw this. I might as well go try out for the special operations teams. And
Mm.
yeah, I just went right back in and got selected and went through the pipeline. And so I ended up doing 13 years in total.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And so what was the attraction once you got there that you stayed that long?
It really wasn't. So I kind of only did one enlistment following that. It was just the amount of time required because the training pipeline is so long. It's like a year and a half of
Mm.
training,
Right.
2 years when you include like the break. So through that whole 2 year period, I was technically a reservist with
Mm.
active duty, activation.
Right.
So at any point I could have quit and just gone back to my beach house in California and just started
Mm.
like where I was, which actually I think helped me a lot because I didn't want to quit. No matter how badly I could have or may have, been like, why am I here in this freezing cold rain when I could literally go back to California, surf, hang out with a bunch of babes? So that really, I think, molded a lot of my mental and emotional fortitude, the opportunity to go back and just never do it. Because everybody else, if they quit, they just go back to the Marine Corps. So they're there either way. But I had this freedom that I just didn't want to fall victim to, that comfort. And after the training, I reenlisted. So that was like a 5 year reenlistment, I think. And just the time frame with all of it just ended up being, another 7 years total with the training. So they're there either way. But I had this
Hang on.
freedom that I just didn't want to fall
Something
victim
just
to.
opened up on my computer. I apologize.
That's all good.
So you could have quit,
Yeah.
but you're not a quitter. That's
No.
what I'm listening to. You're not a quitter.
Yeah.
And so you re-enlisted. What was it that made you want to say, I'm going to do this one more time?
That was closure. I
Mm.
ran into a MARSOC team on my way leaving Afghanistan in 2010. So when I first got out of the military, I got out on July 23rd of 2010. I got back from Afghanistan July 4th of 2010.
Mhm.
So I literally had 2.5 weeks to complete the entire Marine Corps checkout process, which is like a 6 month process. And then boom, I was just out.
Mm.
But when I was leaving Afghanistan, I ran into a MARSOC team, and this guy sat with me, and we were talking all night. And they were there to pick up some Afghan commandos and go out on this super big mission. And I ran into them because I knew their ammo tech, the ammo technician, the guy who basically handles their ammunition and some weapon
Mhm.
stuff for them. So we're talking, and these guys are telling me these stories about how they're going on these operations, these missions, their commitment to one another. And after I got home a few days later, as I'm going through that checkout process, I found out the guy died. His name was Chris Antonick.
Mm.
And it just, for some reason, just, I don't know why. It's not like we became great friends or anything. He just shared an evening with me and a lot of stories. And then to find out that he was dead just a couple of days later, I just kind of felt like I wanted to go back and get some closure. And I always had an eye for going back to the adventurous side of me. Like, I tried to get myself into sniper school as a truck driver. And when I
Mm.
got all the way up to like the final approval, which was at the School of Infantry. And when I walked in there, the gunnery sergeant looked at me and he goes, "What is your job?" And I was like, "I'm a truck driver." And he threw my package in the trash. He goes, "There's Marines in this, they call them a stay platoon, that are waiting for a sniper slot for years. Some of them never get to go to sniper school. And you're a truck driver and you just finagled this package to get yourself into sniper school and you almost got in." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you." And he goes, "Well, how about machine gun school?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." So he put me in a machine gun school, which was actually pretty neat. But I've always had a knack for it. I've always had an eye for it. And I've always wanted to try out for something like that. I didn't want to just, go by life passively. So that was some of the stuff.
Well, very interesting. What would you say were some of your biggest lessons that you learned as a Marine?
One is know how to carry heavy things long distances. I think that's a very valuable lesson for any man, especially women too, though, in life, is that if you can carry heavy, awkwardly shaped objects for long periods of time and long distances, then it will help you be very successful in life. And there's a number of lessons behind that. One, the actual, like, physically, if you're on the run, or if there's genocide or a natural disaster or war breaks out and you literally need to move yourself long distances, that will be very helpful. But also in terms of the mental and the emotional resiliency. Because when you're on mile 10 of carrying this awkward 75 chunk of metal, and there's just no way to do it comfortably, Mark 15 for all my military people out there, they know what I'm talking about,
Right.
then you got to really dig into those reserves and keep yourself moving forward, because it's freaking miserable. The other thing is, as a leader, you need to always lead by example. And just because you have a position doesn't mean that anybody's going to listen to you, doesn't mean they're going to respect you. And so in life, become the person that you want to be. Every single thing that you do, every thought that you have is a vote casted for the individual that you desire to become. And in those moments when you're actually performing those actions and you're thinking those thoughts that are in alignment with the person whom you desire to be, that's when you are that person. And the longer that you can remain consistent with that, then the more obvious it becomes to you, the more you embody that. Sorry, man.
That's okay.
Kids.
How old?
2.5.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. I don't know what he's frustrated about right now, but it sounds serious. But that embodiment of the character and is important for leadership, for sure.
Yeah, that definitely talks about leadership, being able to have people follow you because you're doing it yourself. It's there's always that image of the leader who's standing and he's hitting the chariot, right? And everybody's pulling him along. Or there's the leader who's actually at the front end and he's pulling everybody along with whatever weight they have to carry. So that definitely distinguishes the kind of leaders that there are in the world, because we actually have seen both, right? And I'm sure you've seen both. Probably not in the Marines, because in the Marines, I think once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
They say that, but I'm not, honestly. I was so
No?
jaded by the time I got out. Yes, I'm indoctrinated. Like, I could never wear another service uniform,
Right.
but I'm just so over it, especially with everything going on in the world. I mean, we can talk about that here in a minute if you want, but there is a sense of pride that comes along with being a Marine, that's for sure.
Yeah. But what I mean by always a Marine, I mean by the instilled knowledge that you can use your skills at any given time because they were ingrained in you. That's what I mean. Always a Marine. That's what I meant by it, right? I'm sure there's negativity to it as well, right?
Yeah, there's just so much that I think what we're kind of talking about here is correct. Where when you have developed skills and habits and mindset that you've structured it in a way in your brain neurologically to where you could always fall back on it reflexively, absolutely, that's super important and super huge. And especially when it comes to coaching anybody in life, doing anything, you always want to find a coach that has already achieved and attained that result. The biggest thing we see on social media, especially these days, is people are good at making videos. And so they create these facades, these fake characters just to get a buck or two off of people. But the reality is that they've never created a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure business. They've never actually utilized lethal techniques and tactics in a life-threatening situation and so forth. And so it's important, I think, to lead by example, to be that individual, so then you can guide other people along that process. And then also to know when you need to be in the front, but also know when you need to take a step back and push everybody else forward, to mentor and guide them. And those are some reflexive skills, I think, that a lot of people in the military are capable of developing, especially in the Marine Corps. You're either going to be a really great leader or a really bad leader coming out of the Marines, I think. But yeah, it's once you develop something so ingrained in your soul, it's really hard to get that out of you.
Right. And that's what I meant by it. My brother's a Marine, and he's
Oh.
on the reserves, and he's been on the reserves forever.
So, but yeah.
One of the things that everybody always thinks that I was in the military. I guess because of the training that I started so early on, it's people think I've been in the military. I've been my own military because I've always trained, So tell me what happened once you left the military for good. What did you see yourself doing, and what did you actually do?
So when I left the military, I didn't really have much of a vision. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was horribly depressed. I was on 26 medications, suffering from concussions and a lot of survivor's guilt. Plus, there was a lot of things going on in my personal life that were just like falling apart. Excessive drinking. And when I say excessive drinking, I'm talking a bottle of Jameson every single night for years. I mean, years, of putting a gun in my mouth regularly, just waiting to freaking pull the trigger, like, taking all the slack out of it. Just, is this going to be the time, that I actually have the balls to do it? And that really just compounded itself into a really disastrous exit from the military, where I was just homeless, lost all my money doing a bunch of high risk stock options trading, and didn't know what I wanted to do. And then there was the shooting down at Marjorie Stoneman in Florida with, I'm not even going to say the shooter's name just because I don't do that. I don't want to give these jerks credit. But I realized in that incident, there were 17 people killed and 14 of them were in the classroom hiding. And I was like, why are they hiding in the classroom? In the special operations community, we live in active shooter environments. We're linking up with locals. We're giving them guns. We're training them. A lot of the times they turn their, the gun on us. We had 2 green on blue incidents. That's the local force green shooting at us blue. And unfortunately, it resulted in several killed in action, several wounded in action. And so as I started to dive in and do some research on active shooter incidents, this is 2018, 19 at the time, where it's starting to become the new trend, I realized that a lot of people killed are hiding. In fact, the majority of people are either killed in the first couple seconds of gunfire or while hiding during the incident. And I'm like, why don't they just get out of there? Especially something like Marjorie Stoneman, they were all on the first floor. I could have just broke a window and ran. And so I wanted to work with schools and law enforcement officers on developing emergency preparedness programs and then helping cops with their tactical response. And as I started to put myself out there, nobody wanted to work with me. Schools are very fear-based, egomaniacal, arrogant. They don't want to accept some, as I've been told, white military guys' advice on how to keep their students alive. Okay, cool. That's a pretty weird statement. And then with law enforcement, very fear-based, they're scared of being criticized or being exposed by an external force and ruining their career, ruining their tenure, ruining their department's reputation, even though that's not what I'm there to do. I'm just there to give them, the tactics that I know. They just were very closed off to it. And so ultimately that ended up morphing into working more with corporations on like conflict de-escalation, some active shooter emergency preparedness, some security program development. And that's where I find myself working with executives predominantly now as a coach and executive coach.
Right. So It's very interesting when we talk. Here's the funny thing. I did a show earlier, and I read it from this book, 365 Down, and the topic was defense,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things that it says, I'm going to read that to you just because it's very interesting. It says, if you've never been attacked, that will be wonderful. Training will still help work out your fears, inhibitions, and anxieties. In the case of conflict, no one, not even a veteran, is ever sure that they will come out alive from a confrontation, but they resolve to go in there and give themselves a fighting chance.
Hmm.
And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's an awesome line right there. 365 Dow. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
take.
yeah. Well, it's all different readings and stuff. It's actually every day. Um, it's by Dang Ming Dash Dao, right? And here, I'll put it up if you want to look at it. I don't know if you can see it that
Yeah,
well.
I got it. I got it. Yeah.
Cool. So, and the next page, because it'll be next week's reading, it's about engagement. So, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that you can't live a life that's worth living unless you are engaged, unless you engage in a situation, and unless you even confront your own fears, right? So you
Right.
have to be engaging daily, right? And earlier when you said, I'm mad every day about something, but I get over it really quick. And I think that you realizing that is the first steps to understanding, like, do I really need to get angry about it? Or could I just say, it's going to pass in like a minute? And instead of being angry about it, learn to understand about it, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm saying that's how I see things, right? Me personally. That's why for anybody who's known me for more than 30 years has never seen me mad, not once.
Nice.
And it's because I understand that if I let things control me, then I lost my power.
Yep.
And I don't want to give my power to anybody. So, and with all that you've seen in the military, with you being engaged at where people are shooting at you, where you're walking into a place and they're like, you know what, we're here to kill you. That really draws upon so many emotions that first I want to thank you for serving and for stepping up, even though you were 18 years old and you just wanted a better thing for your life. You wanted to do something better, but in that one decision, you made a decision that you probably weren't even thinking about. You made a decision to keep me and my family safe. So that's why I thank you.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, it's always awkward when people thank me for my service, but
Of course, I get that. I understand. It's almost like if somebody said, "Hey, thanks for waking up this morning." It's like, well, I was going to wake up anyway,
yeah.
right? I get that. But if it wasn't for our military, and we have one of the strongest one, and probably one of the dumbest one as well. It's not the military that's dumb. It's the people who are leading it, and it's our. It starts from the top, from the president down. That there's so much misinformation. There's so much things that shouldn't happen the way they do, but they still do. And thank God that we still have a strong military, because where would we be in this world if we didn't? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd be invaded at this point. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We would not be United States of America for sure.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Because everybody wants to, take over and dominate the world. And
Yeah.
thank God we have our military. So thank God that there are men and women out there currently who are serving, and maybe they were young and they were 18 years old and they just wanted a better life. Maybe somebody said to them, "Hey, if you go there, you can go to college for free," and that's all they were thinking about. And then if a war breaks out, they're prepared, they're ready, right, to defend us.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of good people in the military. That's for sure.
Without a doubt. And then there's people who, like you said, some of them are going to come out and they're going to be great. They're going to be great leaders. And one of the things that you said that really had me thinking about, so many days that you put a gun to your mouth. And it's a real thing. And people don't understand the struggles that people who come out of the military go through because of it's a whole different world that you stepped out of, right? And come into society, if you will, right? Because I think the military is just a different world entirely, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's so different. Everything's different. The families are different. The food's different. The shopping, grocery shopping is different. I mean, it's just crazy different. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and it's veteran suicide is still very, very big, and people don't realize that, and people don't understand why you would put a gun to your mouth. People
Mhm.
don't understand why you would put a noose around your neck, and it's a big problem. And I think one of the things that is lacking is the military following up after somebody comes out to say, "Hey, how can we be there for you? You served the country. You served us. You were there ready to fight if we needed to fight. And maybe you did fight. But once you come out, how can we help you? How can we be there for you?" And what's going on with the VA hospitals, I think it's a disgrace because I have friends who have to go and use those hospitals, and it's a nightmare for them, you know.
Yeah. So some of them are better than others, but like I don't
Right.
even use any of my VA benefits because it was such a crap show that I just got sick and tired of it.
Mhm. Mhm. So you wanted to help. You realized that there was a need for your expertise.
Hmm.
And when you went and try to let people know, "Hey, I'm here to help," and they said, "No, we don't want you because we don't trust you. We don't know you." So how did you start to work with the executives? What was that break that you were able to receive?
So this was about like 20 end of 2019, early 2020, and of course COVID hits. And once that hit, a lot of people started buying a lot of guns. There's lots of people wanted to get training on them. So I
Mhm.
used that as an opportunity to take it from focusing on law enforcement to focusing on everybody and anybody. And I did quite a bit of concealed carry training, firearms training throughout that year. And in that process, I had just been exposed to certain people, and I was doing a lot of, well, in 2020 I wasn't doing that much public speaking, but in 21 I started doing a lot more, and it basically just started to grow from there. So I started training just anybody and everybody. That led to me getting invited to go speak at certain events later on after the restrictions started to kind of die down a little bit. And then that led to other people hearing me, inviting me into their companies. That led to me meeting a few new people. And then I got invited to go talk to some executive coaching groups, things like Vistage, for example. And I started to just speak with very successful business owners. They introduced me to their network, and from there it just really started to spiral out. And they realized that they, as an individual, wanted the training. They wanted training for their family, and that
Mhm.
they also wanted, some of the companies want training for their people,
Right.
because when you're trying to build a confident leadership team, what is going to build your confidence more than the ability to be lethal? Lethality is the number one single most basic necessity in all human life. Well, security, technically, which is an aspect of lethality, but you can't be good at protecting yourself if your mind isn't sharp, if your discipline
Mhm.
is off, if your physical fitness is garbage. So that's where the lethal lifestyle really comes from. That's like the program that I run is, the Lethality University, the lethal lifestyle. And so, in order to develop more confidence, whether it was somebody who had been victimized, like I had a couple of women who were raped, and then I
Mm.
ended up with them, build their confidence back up, and also gave them the ability to defend themselves. Whether it's an executive team that wants to build leadership skills and confidence within their sales force or whatever it is, knowing these types of skills really makes a big difference, not just in that one area of life, but in all these different areas of life. And that's just caught on pretty well so far.
Yeah, yeah. One of the, and this may be a good adventure for you to even look into is real estate agents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they are taking somebody into an empty home,
Hmm.
right? And I've known real estate agents that have been attacked
Yeah.
because guess what? Nobody's in the house. And now this pervert or this crazy person decides, well, nobody's going to hear you scream. And then they've been attacked.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it's as a young lady or even as a person who says I'm going to go into real estate, maybe they've had 3 or 4 kids and they go, okay, kids are adults, now what do I do? Oh, look, there's a real estate ad. I'll train myself and I'll go start selling homes. But they're not prepared. They don't have that awareness. That's what we're talking about, is understanding the awareness that you need when you go into a situation,
Yeah.
because they're going in a trust, right? They say, oh, well, I met them at the office and I'm just going to go take them and show them these 3 houses. And then maybe on the third house, the person decides, you know what? I'm here for what I want. And unfortunately, it's a sad situation, but it's a situation that you may be able to benefit, but the people who would benefit the most is the real estate companies that would say, hey, you know what? And if there's anybody who's a real estate agent listening, you need to train. You need to be able to listen. This is what you're carrying. And in New York, you can't carry a gun. Uh, you know, But if this is what you're carrying, this is the best weapon you have right here. Not only
Hmm.
can you sign a contract and make some good money, but you can stick this in their neck if you need to, or in their
Yeah.
eye, right? But if you don't have the training for it, how are you going to be able to do it? So I'm always encouraging people to, no matter where they are, is to learn how to use simple things, right? To be
Yeah.
able to defend themselves.
Absolutely, yeah, and I actually realtors, real estate agents, they were actually the first group that I started to really
Mm,
focus on the target. I created a real estate safety checklist that any real estate agent, if you're listening, you can get a hold of me at Instagram at Joseph_Malone_official or training at southerncross.company. It's always me that responds, but I created a safety checklist, which was more than just carry pepper spray, carry a gun
right.
with you. It has to do with the way that you present a room so that you don't appear awkward and it's still elegant, it's still poised, but you're
Mhm.
positioning yourself in the safest position possible. How to position your vehicle, where to keep your car keys, how to have a wireless camera overtly showing and a little sign that says, hey, you're being recorded for my safety. These
Mhm.
little types of things, sharing your location, knowing how to use the SOS function in your iPhone or your Android phone.
Right.
All that stuff compounds into a couple of different things. One, preparation. So you're not paranoid, you're just prepared, which two, that has an effect on your sympathetic nervous system, your fear-based or fight-based response, which means, hey, I've done the training, I'm adequately prepared with my tools, so I could think now more creatively and get better focus on the sale, because you can't think in fear and creativity at the same time. It's just not physically possible. Once that part of the brain starts to activate, the fear center,
Mhm.
then all the other parts of your brain shut down, which is why we have a reflex. And then, lastly, so it puts you in a position where you're safest. It makes you feel calm, comfortable, because you're actually preparing yourself. And then lastly, it really truly gives you the skill set required to, in a worst case scenario, defend yourself against some sort of criminal or creep. And you're absolutely right. I've had multiple real estate agents that I've worked with where they were either attacked, I had one whose friend was murdered a couple
Mm,
of months prior to coming to me. And it's heartbreaking when you hear this stuff, because that was somebody's mom. And I think it's really important that people learn in all areas of life, real estate agent or not, this is like the nexus of the lethal lifestyle, is that when you are prepared, then you are living a calmer, more happy, joyous lifestyle, because you're just simply more prepared. You're more aware of your environment. Awareness creates presence, and presence in the moment is what we lack in life, especially nowadays. Everybody's trying to get presence out of their daily routines, their daily habits. They want to see their kids smile. They want to see the look in their loved one's eyes. But we're always living in the future in this state of consistent anxiety. Why? Because you're unprepared and you're nervous about the future. for a number of reasons. But the biggest one right now is our own personal safety, because we're being programmed, conditioned by news media outlets, by all our social media outlets. Everything is programming us to be what? Afraid of other human beings. And that is having a very, very significant impact on our subconscious and the way that we observe other human beings and go about our day. That's why anxiety is through the roof these days, because all other humans do is kill one another. But I digress to, it's the importance of preparation, is that it allows you to live a calmer, more comfortable life.
Wow, powerful, powerful. And, I thank you for going out there and empowering people and realizing that your tools are we're going to allow people to be empowered. Because for me, that's why I do this show, to empower people, to help people, to
Yeah.
bring people like you into the masses, to introduce you to my audience. So would you mind saying your Instagram handle again so everybody
Yeah.
can go and follow you?
Yeah, it's Joseph_Malone_official.
If you want, just put it in the private chat and I'll have it running across the bottom here.
Cool.
This way, we can share it with everybody. And I think that anybody who is interested in whether you're an individual or you work for a company, talk to your company and say, hey, you know what? I heard this show by Sifa Raphael, and he was talking to Joe Malone, and these guys were talking about the importance of us being safe. Would you consider doing a program like this? And I think that would be. Oh, here, I'll just throw your email on there. I think that's really good because this is, we can have heads of companies call you or reach out to you. Let me throw this up here for everybody.
Yeah, anybody could reach out at any time. And here's the thing, when it comes to like companies, corporations, and executives who want to do something like this for their team, this is, in essence, true workplace violence prevention training. So for anybody who's concerned about the likelihood of workplace violence, what you need to be doing is you need to be hiring somebody like myself. And there's not very many people who do what I do, because everybody does workplace violence prevention training as what? PowerPoint slides. It's some retired cop who doesn't really know anything about neurochemical disposition within the human condition, certain patternistic behavior types. So they just read a bunch of stats and then they PowerPoint you to death, with which, if you ask me, actually that
You're
increases the
absolutely right.
of violence, because everyone's just like drained from it. But when you have leadership, team building, training, empowering exercises that truly give your people skills to not just keep themselves safe, but their family and loved ones safe, now you're actually creating the neurochemical disposition, meaning like the emotional state within that human being of love and appreciation for you and the people that they also work with, and especially when you have team building. That's how you prevent violence in workplaces. It's not by giving them a PowerPoint presentation on statistics. It's by bringing them together in a positively social, engaging environment where they learn about one another and one another's skills and limitations. And then they help support each other, and you create a good culture of cohesive unity. That's how you really prevent the likelihood of violence within your organization. And at the same time, if it does happen, well, you've been giving your people all these empowerment skills, like how to properly use pepper spray, how to have true situational awareness, how to use a firearm. Everyone's so scared of guns. It's not guns, it's the person. It's nothing more than a tool. That's all it is.
Mhm. And then also you probably would be great at going at a company and saying, hey, you guys don't have enough cameras, or your
Yeah.
lighting is off in your parking lot, because if if they're only thinking about the inside, it's not enough, because people either maybe they're working late, maybe this is happening,
Mhm.
maybe they only have a fixed camera, not one that scans,
Mhm.
or so all these different things. I'm sure that you would be an expert going into people's homes, not only in their homes but their businesses, right? Because how important is it when we have Siri and we have all these little systems, speaker systems, that we can say, hey, play my favorite music? Why not have it say like I guess a code word, if you will, a safety word,
Mhm.
as they use it in certain things, and have that word that, if that word is said, it automatically calls the police that there's something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a great thing to be able to do?
Yeah, that actually is a really interesting idea. I don't know if that exists here or not, but I tell you, I'm actually really going to go look right after this interview, because that's a
See
great
that?
idea. I do. So the way I break down violence within the workplace is there's an intrinsic threat, which you mitigate by what we were just talking about: leadership, team building exercises, empowerment training. And then there's the extrinsic threat where, yes, I do absolutely provide assessments and surveys in great detail on, hey, deterrent factors and intervention factors and detection factors. All this works in, cohesion with one another to, one, deter criminals, because if you could deter them from doing criminal behavior, that's the best outcome possible. They're just not even doing it by your location, and it is so easily done. I don't think companies and people understand how easy it is to deter criminal activity from an extrinsic threat around the workplace or around your home. Super simple. Anybody who wants to know, reach out. When it comes to the detection and then ultimately the intervention, yes, all that stuff as well is very, very important. And so I include, whenever clients hire me to come in, I'll include a comprehensive report on everything that we find. And then I could help them actually build and structure out that security program or those security systems so that they don't get taken advantage of. Because unfortunately, it's a saturated market with a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about, and they just want to make a quick buck, some external contractor. It's difficult to navigate, which is why a lot of people avoid it. They avoid training because the trainers are usually some douchebag who is like overly intense to compensate for their lack of life experience, and they beat their chest the whole time about how awesome they are and how much you suck. So that's a bad trainer. That's a horrible trainer. They should not even be a trainer. And then when it comes to setting up these types of programs or the physical security piece, they're dealing with some person who's going to overcharge them, always quote them on the most expensive system, even though it's not the most needed one. It's not the best suited one for the situation. So they always feel like they're being taken advantage of. And I like to help people navigate those waters. I've got multiple clients right now that I'm doing that with. And it's really cool to watch them implement some really effective physical security measures. It's really fun.
Right. And, and I also, when you were talking, I'm thinking we're creatures of habit, right? And who likes to see your habits? Criminals, because they see what time you always get home, which direction you're coming from, if you open your garage door ahead of time, because they'll just sneak in your house, right? And even hide or whatnot. So I think that when it comes to your safety, you can never be too cautious. Even for me, I love to fight, and I've been fighting basically my whole life. I was a bouncer for 5 years in New York, and it was tough. I mean, we used to have gangs and all this, knives, chains, all guns, this whole deal. And I'm the only bouncer that I never went. The police never came looking for me because I never hurt anybody. For me, it was about protecting them, protecting the public, right? And it was never like people try to take my head off, and I never saw it as a personal thing. So that's why I didn't get the anger, like, oh, you punched at me, now I got to beat you up. So that's what my colleagues used to do. They used to beat people up. I'm like, why are you guys hurting this person? It's not worth it. You're going to be looked at tomorrow, right? Because especially now there's footage everywhere. But back when I was doing it, there was not that many cameras, so they got away with a lot of stuff. But for me, it was always about, it's not personal. Because if they knew me, this guy who's trying to punch me in the head or stab me, it was not personal. Because if they knew me, they wouldn't do that to me. So it's just because they're going through the stage in their head, or they feel like they need to be or act in this way. So even for me, I'm always cautious. I don't always drive in the same direction. There's so many different ways to get to where I need to go. And I'm always aware when I exit somewhere, or when I go into a restaurant, or I go to a store. I'm always aware of every little detail. And people are like, man, you're paranoid. I'm like, no, I want to live to be here for another day. And it's not paranoia. It's just being alert. That's all. Right.
Yeah. I say it's preparation and it's presence. It's not paranoia. It's preparation and presence. And it's admirable when somebody actually looks people in the face and eyes as they're going by them throughout their day, because, and this is the biggest point of all the training that I make to people, is that you're not training to be some head on a swivel Vietnam veteran, like, paranoid, ready to go at any moment. I actually totally disagree with that. Who wants to live like that? That sounds
Mhm.
miserable. What we're talking about here is the way of the warrior. Like, a lethal person is a person who is highly present in their environment, which means that you're living a more fulfilled, joyous life. It's the fact that you could see all the different fruits that are displayed at the grocery store and actually think to yourself, do I want to try that new jackfruit over there? Whatever it
Mhm.
is. It's the fact that you're walking through the parking lot and you could smile at the mom with 3 kids, and the kids are picking on each other or something, doing something crazy, right? And the mom's like, get over here, you're in a parking lot. She yells at them. It's those little moments in life that we just lose track of so quickly. And the other
Mhm.
part to all of this is that when you're present and when you do things differently, like you're talking about taking different routes home or walking different ways, it keeps your mind open. We're so, as creatures of habit, we're so easily programmed into the same monotonous flow each and every day. And people say, why? I'm never going to be rich. I'm never going to be successful. Well, it's because you do the exact same thing every day. You even use the same coffee cup every single morning. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this. This is how I learned a lot about the brain and neurology, plus my time in the traumatic brain injury clinic. But like the quantum relation between quantum physics and our neurology is that you emit energy. And if you do the same exact thing every single day, you're emitting the exact same level and frequency of energy. However, when you change your day up with intent, hey, I'm purposefully going to drive this different way to work just because, and then you're present and you see the things that are around your environment, the cool little store, the ice cream shop,
Mhm.
again, people within your community, you actually get a feel and a sense of the culture that you're a part of. It keeps your brain open and it changes your frequency and it allows you to explore new opportunities because you're not just doing the same thing every single day over and over, feeling the same way. And that's how people get miserable. So when you practice these basic security behaviors, then you're actually keeping yourself open to more opportunities in life because you're not allowing yourself to fall within that mundane cycle.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, and so for a lot of people, their habits define them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get nervous, they need to light up a cigarette, or they
Yeah.
get nervous, or something happens to them, they have to lash out at somebody else. It's their habits that either create great things or create terrible things, right?
Yeah.
And it allows us to, if because I'm a habit freak, right? So what I
Me too.
mean by that is that I see habits from people, and I'm always looking at me, and I'm like, did I do that yesterday? Well, I'm not doing like that today. I'm going to change it up. So every day, here's the thing: I wake up in gratitude, and I'm thankful that I'm alive. But then I also say, you know what? How can I make today better than yesterday? And so
Mm-hmm.
my days are never, ever the same. They're always, there's always something different. There's always something better that I'm trying to do. And I'm grateful that you were able to find that link and we were able to come on and have the show. I'm grateful that you had a different microphone that you were able to plug into, right? And, you know, here's the thing, sometimes there is adversity. There are things that come up, that unexpected things that come up, but it's about understanding in the place that we are that we can be better, that we
Yeah.
can do better, we can do more. And you talked about the coffee cup. It's very interesting because when I bought my girlfriend, I went on a trip recently, and I said, oh, let me get her a different coffee cup. And I said, I'm going to buy her two. And she's got like so many coffee cups because every time I always buy her a coffee cup, um, and myself too. And so I bought it. And so she doesn't always use the same coffee cup. And it's interesting. And I said, well, what coffee cup do you want today? She goes, get me that one and or this one. And it's about those tiny little changes that we can do just to keep the brain going, right? It also helps with, I guess, down the line, dementia, right? That's where reading is so important. You have a bunch of books behind you, I have a bunch of books behind me. I think that reading is also a good way to go into a different realm, if you will. Because if you're reading a book about somebody's life or something that they discovered or something that they're writing, they had to put process and thought into it. And
Mhm.
then we get a chance to go into their world. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we are creatures of habit. The brain has two priorities: conserve energy and keep us safe from death and harm. And
Mhm.
the brain, per gram of body weight, burns more calories than any other part of the entire body. It's a caloric burning machine. And so when it consciously has to think about things, it burns more calories than when it programs something into the subconscious or the habitual behavioral pattern. That's all habits are, is, hey, you've done something enough times now, the brain no longer wants to burn calories consciously thinking about this behavior. Let's just put that in the subconscious, that automated programming. And then before you know it, you're putting your pants on the same way you do every day. You're brushing your teeth the exact same way that you do every day. And for anybody who's not satisfied with where their life is at, you need to change those little things. And it's the same with your personal safety. Everybody thinks that, oh, it's these major drastic changes they need to take. I need to get punched in the face 100 times now by my that's not the case. It's like it's all these seemingly stupid me. Like the first thing I have my students do when they're waking up every day is drink a tall glass of water. That's the
Mm.
first thing I'll tell them to do. I won't even give them anything to do. They're like, I just paid you money and you're telling me to drink water? Yes. Because if you're incapable of even drinking a glass of water every single day when you wake up, then you're really not truly committed to making change. And then when you do start drinking that tall glass of water every single morning, what are you doing? You're igniting your nervous system, you're getting your membranes going, you're starting to create more energy in the process of, ATP and the metabolization of, nutrients. All that stuff contributes to having a sharp mind and developing new habits. And when you develop that new habit of drinking water every morning, it's creating a new pathway in the brain. And that new pathway in the brain means that you are literally physiologically changing into a new human already. Just by
Mhm.
doing that one thing every single day, you are no longer the same human being that you were a month ago or whatever it is to actually get the pathway going. So
Yeah.
little changes with persistency and consistency make a difference in a life of an individual. And so it's really important that they are aware of those habits and that habitual behavior.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Being aware of them is important. Also, it's okay to continue doing the ones that benefit you, right?
Absolutely. You need to. There needs to be habits in the human existence, because without it, you're just basically a ship without a rudder. And so you have to have habits. It's just a matter of you consciously choosing which ones those are. That's the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person. And success, to me, by definition, is what Earl Nightingale used to say: the progressive realization towards a worthy ideal. So it
Mm,
can be anything, but it's you making progress towards that worthy ideal, that goal that you have. And anybody who is working towards their goals and feels a sense of purpose, they're happy with their life. But it all comes down and boils down to their daily habitual process. What do you do every single day to make sure that you're pushing that needle forward? Absolutely, they are needed.
yeah, yeah. Man, I got to tell you, what a great conversation you and I had. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate you. Do me a favor, hang out. We're going to say goodbye to everybody. I want you to come on some of my other shows. I have 5 shows, so I definitely would
Right,
like
right,
for you to come on them and share
right.
that wisdom and knowledge that you have attained. And I commend you for helping more people become aware, to understand awareness, because I think that's one of the things that we need, right, as a society. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter where in the world you live in, you need that, especially if you live in a third world country. My gosh, you need it probably more than we do here in America, where everything's peachy keen, right? You go to the mall, you go to the supermarket, and in these third world countries, a mall may be like, what is that, right? In a supermarket, what is
yeah,
that? And
yeah,
that's
they
so
don't.
fancy, right? So
Yeah.
we take things for granted as well.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so easy to be so grateful. If you could be grateful in the worst of conditions, you could be grateful in the best of conditions, but you must remain aware of it. And yeah, this has been awesome, man. I'd be more than happy to come on your other shows as well.
All right, great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. Have yourself an exceptional day and follow my new and good friend, Joe. Take care, everybody.